supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Even though the sound of it is something quite atrocious. If you say it loud enough. Hello. Welcome back in to the fantasy football, but I'm playing Minecraft also show. The best fantasy football show that also involves someone playing Minecraft concurrently, simultaneously. I am Nert Doobles. I'm the host of said show. And today we're going to cover just one football game, the Thursday night football game, and we're going to do the starts and sits for the week, and that's it. It's going to be a bit of a shorter episode, I think, and I hope. Normally I would have these already released by Friday night, maybe even by Friday morning, Friday afternoon. But today I'm running behind. I'm actually re-recording this after taking one. Excuse you. Hello. Wow. I basically I went on a little adventure and just explored, got some stuff. Didn't do too much, but you can see our house here is apparently we have a family now. Me, you, and Bobby Magoo over here. All right. Yeah. So today we're going to cover the Thursday night football game featuring the Bills and the Dolphins. I guess I got to start with the Bills just because that feels better. Because the Bills felt like they played better and they looked better as a team. They were much more in sync, and this is, I think, the kind of game that you might see from the Bills all season. It's the kind of game they want to play, where they just basically run the ball, have strong defense, and Josh Allen doesn't have to do a whole ton, and he certainly didn't do a whole ton for you from the fantasy football perspective. So, yeah, that's what I would expect to continue to see, for better or for worse, from this Bills team. James Cook was awesome. He was great. Ray Davis looked good as the definitely as the backup, as the understudy in this situation. He's definitely got a lot of potential there. Khalil Shakir in the passing game was proved that he is the relied upon, trusted guy there, and that's something you should, I think, invest in. Although I gotta say, it's gonna be hard to have big weeks from Bills receivers with any predictability, I think. In this game, Keon Coleman he was targeted only once or twice. He didn't have a lot of work, but he'll have a touchdown or two at any given point in time, but we just can't predict it. And Curtis Samuel, that he has some good plays, but I don't know what to do. I don't know which one of them to start. You know what I mean? But I think Shakir proved his value as at least a hold, a bench player, or a kind of think of him as a floor-oriented player. But I don't know. I don't love that either. Maybe I should live in this house. Dalton Kincaid, he played good, and he showed that he was at least. Oh, that's actually a nice little area for a little porch. Oh yeah, we're doing this. Yeah, Kincaid. Stock up for just having a floor and actually having, playing, getting enough targets to look like he's a startable player at least. I think the Bills team is just a contender this year, and this is how they're going to want to win games. I think this year the Bills are the kind of team that's going to be really no nonsense about winning games. They're the veteran team that has had, have been the also ran and come close. And this year, I think they're just like, we're just not going to let anything stand in our way. We're just going to get it done. And that's how they're going to play. They're going to play like a team that, is just going to stop at nothing to get wins. But I think that also means they're going to be very sensible, and that they're going to have the kind of game plans, and that they're going to have the kind of situations. Whoa, stripped spruce wood. Cool. Where they can just... Oh, whoops. I meant to do this way. Where they can just dominate games with the run game and the defense. Josh Allen might not have big games every week, so he might be the biggest loser in this situation. Nope, excuse me. I still live here. I haven't moved into that other house yet. Oh, I think their offense is going to be strong all season, but it may benefit the running backs more than anybody else. It may benefit, Josh Allen in some games, but he may also have games like this, and that's just the reality of the situation. Some of the other good top-tier quarterbacks have similar situations. If you have a good team, you might get in games where you don't need to do much. You know what I mean? So there's that to consider. But yeah, the Bills look good. Moving on to the Dolphins, the big news here, the very scary, a player with a concussion history, Tua Tagovailoa, having this concussion in the game. You hate to see it, obviously. I mean, it's cliche to say, but you hate to see it, and you wish him all the best. I mean, this is a situation where, I don't know. I really don't know what to say. I wish him the best. I don't know if he's going to come back to continue playing or not. Certainly, wouldn't blame him at all if he chooses not to. But if he does come back to play, I'm gonna talk with the expectation that that's a possibility, and we're gonna talk as though I don't know. He'll miss a few weeks, but he'll be back this season, perhaps. I'm gonna keep that as my assumption, just based on. I hope no matter what that he does what he really feels is right in the long term, and with his family in mind and everything. I just know he is really a competitor. He's probably going to want to come back and play. But in any case, whether he does or not, we can't know right now. All we can say is that while he is out, it's definitely a downgrade, as you saw in this game, for the Dolphins' passing offense. Namely Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. It's looking like a situation where, unless they have a backup who can really extend, what do you call it? Can really flush out the value in the offense, in the passing game particularly. It's going to be, a rough couple weeks for those guys. Maybe Tyreek Hill will be okay, just because he gets a lot of targets. And I think what we saw in that game was, even with the passing game, it was still, before Tua got injured, there was a ton of things that you didn't like to see. I feel like it was Tua's play capping the ceiling of that team by throwing interceptions, by not making the best decisions. I think this is the quote-unquote down-to-earth version of the Dolphins offense that we'll see this year. But the thing is, there's such a creative play calling, like their play calling and their offensive play disguise and everything they do is really creative. So what I'm trying to say is that I think the creative offensive play calling and the skill players create a rising tide that lifts all boats. So even with a backup quarterback who doesn't have a downfield game, I think the Dolphins team can still put up fantasy numbers at particular positions, namely, still probably Tyreek Hill, I would think, just because they'll use him in that hybrid role where he'll get hybrid touches of sorts. And maybe, honestly, they probably will use Jalen Waddle in that kind of role too. So they'll probably both, not turn to dust or anything. But you're looking at a situation where, I just realized, I remember what I was going to do. You're looking at a situation where I think the biggest beneficiaries are quite possibly, I don't know if they call them beneficiaries because the whole offense takes a slight hit, but Devon Achane is definitely the guy there, man. And Mostert, it should be noted, is expected to come back and get healthy, but yeah, I think it's a situation where really more than anything, the great benefit. Take these and move them over here. The benefit, Achane is the one who, I was surprised at how much he looked like an early down back, as well as a late down back, as well as like the pass outlet in general. It was definitely good stuff there. So from my perspective, yeah, the biggest winner here from this game is Achane, and he just looks really good. he's got a ton of juice and a ton of skill in general. So it's exciting for that team to see that they still have a runner like that. And honestly, I think what we're going to see this season is that he is the MVP of that offense from a fantasy perspective, probably regardless of who's in at quarterback. So I don't know. It remains to be seen, like many other things. But anything else about the Dolphins to say? Yes, indeed, there is. Jalen Wright stock. I don't know if stock's up or stock down after that game. You can kind of see it either way. If you're concerned about longer term injuries for Mostert and Jeff Wilson, then maybe just the fact that Jalen Wright went out there and he didn't seem to really mess up or make mistakes is a stock up. But if you also if what you perceive, what you saw is the kind of there's really are not involving him. They're not making any effort to highlight him in this game at all. Then I dropped him in one league. I'll say that after this game. Maybe right over here. That's where I can just doing some little building planning over here. Don't mind me. The one Dolphins player that I would say had a game worth noting that you might not be thinking of is Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith, the tight end, had a really decent game. Basically, I would look at it as he is the third. He's maybe the third passing weapon. Maybe that's saying too much, but one thing's for sure: they are involving him in the scheming. He's part of the building plays where he's one of, if not the first option on the play. And he's a talented player, particularly with a backup quarterback. This might be a situation where he actually has some potential each week to really get things done, meaning to really get some points on the board, either as a red zone guy, as some of the screen game kind of stuff that they had for him. So yeah, I'm in on that. Where did I put the bone meal? I thought Jonnu Smith actually had a really good game, and that he should be considered, somebody who can be in the top 10 or 12 tight ends every week, maybe, but also season long, maybe. I don't know. It's worth considering, though. Yes, now we're talking. Perfect. So, what else to say about this game? Not really much. I think we can move on to the next segment. It's a real bummer. It's a huge bummer for Tua Tagovailoa. It's a bummer because this is, a really fun offense to watch with Tua, and Tua's always going to be associated with this fresh, what I would call burst of fresh energy that came to the NFL through this Mike McDaniel Dolphins offense, and so it's a real bummer, Tua's injury, and we wish him the best. And we don't know yet about the jury's still out on what the team looks like if Tua misses time, and if Tua misses the rest of the season. So yeah, we're just gonna go with the flow. But bummer there. Good stuff for fantasy football and other positions, but it's always tough to have the joy of an enjoyable football game, marred or clouded by the tragedy ultimately of injury, and the physical trauma that we witness these players experience, and in this case, the brain trauma, which is of course a whole other class of trauma, unfortunately. So all our best to Tua, and just a reminder to the fantasy football is like we're already abstracted from the real world, and it's easy to think about players as assets rather than as humans, and I think that's obviously very dehumanizing, and that there's definitely a potential in fantasy football to do problematically dehumanize people. So I want to really just offer this reminder that these are human beings that we're talking about, and send prayers up to Tua Tagovailoa and his family. And of course, man, it's we're still going to talk about fantasy football, I guess. So we're just going to move on from there. So I guess that's the segue, sort of, to starts and sits for the week. Yeah, this week, which players do I think you can start in each game, and which ones do I think you should sit in each game? Which is another way to say, how am I valuing players this week and their matchups, and talk about the matchups a little bit, blah, blah, blah. You get the idea. Let's start with going to sleep in a bed before monsters invade the village. Excuse me, I'm borrowing this bed. And we're back. So first and foremost, my Minnesota Vikings facing off against the San Francisco 49ers. Let's start with the Vikings, I suppose. So I don't love starting Vikings in this matchup. I think that, Sam Darnold had a really nice game, but I don't exactly think, I'm not convinced yet, at least. I need to see more, as a skeptical fan who's been burned before I believe that this team is going to put up numbers against a team like San Francisco and get in a shootout with San Francisco. That's not what I see. That's not what I imagine is going to happen in this game. Obviously, I think you still start Justin Jefferson. I think you probably start Aaron Jones over a lot of players. Would you start J.K. Dobbins over Aaron Jones? I don't know. I think that's I don't know. That's tough. That's my borderline there. And I'm ranking Dobbins relatively highly this week, but I'm not going overboard because he still could be splitting work. And of course, Aaron Jones can be splitting work in a sense with Ty Chandler too. So, but that's, I don't know. I think Aaron Jones is a decent start. But you have to ask yourself the question of who are you starting him over, right? So in my case, maybe that's it. I don't know. Anyway, I would wait and see for any of the Vikings' other passing game attacks. I don't think there's any other Vikings players you really need to start here. That goes without saying. Oh, it's a little baby tree. Because there were still leaves blocking it, making a big tree. Well, that's fun. So I think you just stop. I think you hold off on the rest of the Vikings. So the San Francisco 49ers, the latest news, if you're not following the latest news, is that Christian McCaffrey's injury is definitely going to keep him out for week 2. Oh, I should probably I don't have one of these. That Christian McCaffrey's injury is definitely going to keep him out for week 2, and that it's likely that he goes on to the injured reserve. So that is a bummer for sure. But that's the situation. So Jordan Mason's value just went up even more. And so you're looking at a situation where Christian McCaffrey definitely missing 1 week, quite possibly hitting the IR, which would mean even if they put him on this week, it's 4 games counting this coming week that he would miss. So that's rough. That's not good. Jordan Mason, value is great. I hope you picked him up, particularly if you obviously have McCaffrey. But condolences if you didn't. If you don't, that's whatever. That sucks. That's just one of those things that happens if you're not paying attention. Fantasy football, unfortunately, especially in shallower leagues, can really reward people that just are paying attention when news comes out and make pickups, or that are willing to take the time to look at waiver options and be aggressive on the waivers, as opposed to just forgetting on a Tuesday night to set them and then remembering on Wednesday to look, kind of thing. Which is it's casual fantasy football. People have lives and jobs, and that's a thing that happens. But I'm fine starting all of the other San Francisco 49ers skill players here. Mason, obviously. Debo and Brandon Ayuk are both going to be great starts here, I think. The Vikings' pass defense is upgraded, but I don't know that it's, great and needs to be feared in a game like this. But I also think, they could do the establish the run and play defense kind of, what do you call win condition if you're the 49ers. So we could see that as well. Don't discount the possibility that it's just a slow, relatively low-scoring game. But I still think you start those guys. And George Kittle, I think, like any other week, he's just got that potential to kind of get a touchdown or two, or be one of the main weapons who gets a bunch of a bunch of passes and stuff. So, yep. Oops. Oh, and Brock Purdy, of course. I think you can start Purdy in this game. He's not one of my favorite starts of the week, just because I think the Vikings defense may be decent. They may get pressure on them. It may be a low-scoring game, like I said. In general, that's another that'd be another negative case for Purdy. So yeah, he's not one of my top starters, but I would start him. Moving on, the Seahawks take on the New England Patriots. So the Seattle Seahawks. I think this is the week, or a week. I think they're a team more generally. Week 1 looked sloppy, looked bad. I have a feeling, I could be wrong, but and Kenneth Walker, the news is he's going to be out this week. So Zach Charbonnet, he's the dude to, I think it's Charbonnet, forgive me for mispronouncing it. He's the dude to pick up in the backfield there for the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks team is going to be a team out to prove that they are legit. If insofar as they are legit, and insofar as they believe that they are legit also, I think they're going to come out in a game like this. And there's a few teams that I think meet this description. And they're going to want to prove that they're a good team. So they're going to want to basically come out and really make a statement, so to speak. So I think this could be a big game for the Seahawks offense. Even if the Patriots defense is good, and even if the Patriots in general, are a team that can hold teams to lower scoring games, the flip side of this is if the vibes on the Seahawks aren't that great, and if Geno isn't, playing that great, then we could have something closer to the Bengals-Patriots game last week, where it's low scoring, and the offense doesn't really do much for the Seahawks. And that could be a possibility too, that it's turnovers that win the Patriots the game, turnovers and running. So from the Seahawks perspective, I don't love starting any of those wide receivers. I'd look at the Pats secondary. I don't know it offhand because I'm not, like I said, a professional, and I don't do as much research as a professional would do. So DK Metcalf is one who you probably would start anyway, but I'm not in love with starting him either. If I have a deeper set of wide receivers and I can find somebody else in there. Oh, geez, you guys are all getting stuck in here, aren't you? Okay, you get in the boat. There we go. So yeah, I don't love starting the Seahawks. I certainly don't love Geno Smith. But again, if it's one of those, if it ends up being okay, I gotta let all of these. There we go. One at a time, please. One at a time. So, yeah, you can start Charbonnet, I would say, probably more than anybody else. Hey, how's it going? Oh, it's an ice baby calf. Oh, an ice baby, an ice calf baby. Oh, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey. Hey, hi. Millabout. Moving on, the Patriots. Yeah, I think Ramondre Stevenson only until further notice is the answer for the Patriots. You start him. I'd probably put him on the level of that Aaron Jones. It's a tough start on the one hand because you think the Seahawks defense could be good. They could be a good fantasy start this week. The Patriots offense might not get much going. On the other hand, though, Ramondre Stevenson is talented and strong and is the guy on that team, is going to lead the team, in offense, probably in general. Like, I have a lot of friends that are fans of New England Patriots, and so I could, and I should, pick their brain and say, what do you think? Who do you think's potentially going to break out on this Patriots team as a receiver this season? What's it going to take? Or is the defense as legit as we think? But I didn't watch the game week 1. I just see the box score and think, the Patriots defense must be pretty decent. But I don't know. Is that assumption true? And if so, are they better at run defense, better at pass defense? Like, what do I want to know if I'm thinking about matching up with them from a fantasy perspective, right? So yeah, but I wouldn't start the Patriots. I wouldn't even start the Patriots defense myself, just because I think there's that risk of the Seahawks coming out and just really, coming out strong with a real, we're here to make a statement kind of game. I guess you call that a statement game. So next we're looking at the New York Football Giants against the Washington Commanders. I think this is one thing that's interesting about this game to me is I think it really is an opportunity to see a bit more, like to get a bit more of a referendum on these teams, basically, to see whether whether they are gonna have another gear this season, whether they're gonna be more than just a team that gets run over by other teams, basically. And yeah, I think this will be a good week to see that. We get to find out exactly what we're dealing with here. So for the Giants, I'm all about starting Malik Neighbors. I think Wan'Dale Robinson probably can also be started. Yeah, we're gonna find out basically if this is a situation where Daniel Jones is just oh crap. Looking out over this nice, quaint little village here, full of villagers hustling and bustling, and a couple of llamas in the middle of the crop field. Oh, and another cat. Oh, that's what I've been waiting for, is another cat. Here we go, a little orange, beautiful cat. You don't have to be scared. You don't have to be scared. Yep. Hey, my friend? There it is. Took a lot of fish, but eventually you became my friend. Yay! So, yeah, Devin Singletary, I don't know. You could start him, I suppose, if that's your thing. Oh, 2 kitty cats. Whole bunch of villagers. This is fun. Yeah, I mean, this is a game where both of these teams are presumably bad defenses, so it's kind of a matter of you go in there and you start your players against them because it's a bad defense. And I guess we'll see kind of just how bad or good either of these teams can be against an opponent that they're probably, broadly speaking, expected to beat. For the Commanders, this is a game where I think we really, are hoping for. Yeah, sure, I'll eat a potato. Why not? 3, 4 potatoes. I think this is a game where you're really hoping to see Jaden Daniels have a big game and show that he's going to be awesome in the NFL. Oh, yeah, let's eat one more potato, just for good measure. I think you're excited for that. I think you're obviously excited for Brian Robinson Jr. And I think beyond that, you're looking at, this might be the game that Terry McLaurin, we get to see what he's going to do, when he has a good week or he has something in his favor, he has a bad pass defense to exploit. How have they made a baby? I think. I assume. Oh, poor doggy. You're trapped over here in the ice. We're going to bring you up to our new house here. So yeah, I want to start those guys. I want to start the Commanders' skill players. I'm not so big on Eckler myself this season, but yeah, go for it if that's your thing. I mean, I would think it's not going to be a shootout, but we'll see. It might be a shootout of bad defenses, or it might be a low-scoring shootout of bad offenses. So yeah, I'm still scared a little bit about McLaurin, honestly. But I'm personally out on the rest, but you have a good matchup for all of them. Moving on to the Chargers and the Panthers. Yeah. Justin Herbert is probably startable this week if you're nasty. I don't mean to say if you're actually nasty. I just mean if you're like that, if you like to get freaky like that. Lad McConkey feels like game script wise, this is probably not the games where they're going to use him the most, just because like so far it's looking like he is a possession receiver, short and intermediate stuff. But then again, he might be the one that early in the game gets that kind of stuff to get the team going, to get the team in rhythm. They may be able to just run the ball down the Panthers' throats all game, but so in that sense, McConkey's not my favorite start, but he's more of a why not try it kind of a start. If it comes to that kind of a start. So yeah, I think that You probably definitely should start J.K. Dobbins. I'm high-ish on him, but I'm not overdoing it. Like, I'm not going to rank him as a top 5 running back this week just because I think, there's a very real possibility that he splits 50-50 with Gus Edwards and that Gus Edwards vultures some of the touchdowns. So don't go overboard on J.K. Dobbins. I think he's valuable, and I think this is obviously a great matchup for him, and it could be a blow-up game, but I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to go too crazy. I'm just thinking about where to put stuff. The Panthers, no. Just no. Just don't. Deontay Johnson, if you absolutely must, but man, I don't know. I mean, he does feel like he's going to have some value in PPR, but I just don't want to start him until I absolutely have to. Hopefully you didn't draft him as one of your top 2 or 3 receivers on your team, and you can just let him sit on the bench till further notice, till further mild offensive improvements on the part of the Carolina Panthers. So nothing else to say about that. Is there anybody else on the Chargers I need to mention before I forget? Maybe go other players. Maybe those other guys, they have a good matchup. So if you want to start, or if you at least you want to pick up to make sure you got Quentin Johnston or what's his name, Josh Palmer before their big week or whatever, then yeah, go for it. By all means, you do you. I'm not interested in that. Yeah, I'll take some barrels though. I am interested in that. Yeah, that's moving on. Saints and the Cowboys. So for the Saints, let's start there. Tough matchup, obviously. I think Shaheed and Olave, one or both of them, honestly, could have pretty decent games here. Just because I think there is a shootout potential in this kind of game. They're going to need to throw to stay in the game, probably, if the Cowboys put up points. I think that Alvin Kamara's this is probably definitely a minus matchup. Yeah, it might be bad. I mean, it might be like we know he looked last year, according to analytics, like a player who was in a decline of his career. And so if that's the case, that he's actually, slower and not as explosive and stuff, then we could be looking at a week where that really shows up for him. So I'm concerned there for sure. Hey, how's it going? I would stick with Olave and Rashid Shaheed as my only starts from this game. I don't want to start Derek Carr either, obviously, against a strong Cowboys defense. So speaking of the Cowboys, I think you can start Dak if you have to. It might be a shootout game. And, these kinds of games where they're up against a team that actually does have a decent defense and can put up points potentially might be the right kind of matchups to start Dak in. In other words, there's going to be games where the Cowboys have easy early leads. Let's, easily basically outscore the other team. That might be the kind of game that, that you're ending up with in other situations. But in this situation, I think you might get one of those just regular old back and forth. Dak has to do a bunch of drives and get points and stuff. I don't know. I'm not very good at describing it, but you get the idea. I think this might be one of those kind of games, and that you might be, and it might be good to start Dak in that situation. So we'll see, I suppose. But I believe that, you can obviously start CeeDee Lambs and also probably start Brandon Cooks. Again, I don't know enough about the Saints' defensive patterns. If the Saints if they're like a run funnel team and teams tend to run on them a lot, then maybe it's Zeke and or Dowdle that you try to figure out. But I'm of the mind that it's the receivers that will get the most work on this team. That it's going to be a pass first team this year when it can be, or when it needs to be, I should say. As opposed to like games that their defense can just win for them, but in games that their defense can't just win for them, my sense is that another kitty, awesome. And in games that their defense can't just win for them, my sense is that it's going to be a pass first attack. Yes. Be my friend. Awesome. Yeah, now I got kitties. Oh, and you're purring? That's awesome. Yeah, hell yeah. So yeah, I like the Cowboys in this matchup, the receivers particularly, and the more I think about it, the more I like Dak relative to the other players. I think Jake Ferguson has been, I don't know if he's been declared out, but it sounds like he's there or almost there. I I would look elsewhere rather than going for the backup Luke Schoonmaker. Then again, he's in the passing attack. He might have a game where they use him in the same role that Ferguson would normally be used as, so that could work out too. I mean, who am I to say? Such a pretty kitty. And yeah, Zeke and Dowdle. I don't know if you want to. Moving on. The Colts and the Packers. I think this is for the Colts, this is a let's go kind of matchup. Oh, you're so close to the bell. I can't ring the bell because you're too close to the bell. No. Oh, you're so freaking cute. All y'all are cute. I think that this is the kind of game with with what's his name there? The guy who got injured. No, not that guy. I think this is the kind of game where you have a good defense, or at least a defense that I think is going to be a good fantasy defense, with the caveat that they're going to be a lot better as a fantasy defense. They're going to be better when Jordan Love is playing for them, but a defense that seems like a decent defense going up against the Colts offense, which seems like an awesome offense, particularly in the run game, the ground and pound. I think this is a game where you could have a big game every week, I think Anthony Richardson, Jonathan Taylor, those are the guys with the biggest value on that Colts team most weeks, and this is no exception. But I think it's a good matchup in general for defense and run game to dominate or to be the plan of attack, ideally, for both teams. So I do like the Colts players, but I also think it could be a low-scoring, suppressed game. So I still am... Pittman, to me, is still somebody I don't love starting, but I think he's probably okay to start. I'm not super worried about it, particularly if the Packers have pass funnel-ish aspects going on, which I don't know if they do. I kind of feel like they have Jair Alexander, but I think he sustained some injury, a minor injury this past week, possibly. I don't know. I have to look at that sort of stuff. You should look at it too if you're making these decisions about who to start and who to sit. So do some more research if that's something of concern to you. Now, other wide receivers, I think it's a dart throw, but I think this could be a player that you pick up speculatively and you just hold to see how it goes. Adonai Mitchell, Alec Pierce. We'll just wait and see with these guys. Josh Downs. I don't know the status. I think he was injured and may not be playing, or maybe reduced there. In any case, moving to the Packers, I think the Packers is Josh Jacobs, until further notice, until Jordan Love comes back, essentially. You might be able to get something out of one of the other guys on the team. I think I saw something about Jaden Reed having an injury going into the week. I don't know if that's going to keep him out of the game. You're cool. You're a fisherman. That's neat. I don't want to trade you my coal, though. Oh, yeah, because of barrels. That's why you all turned into fishermen, because I put so many barrels in here. Well, that's fun for now, until I exploit you. Sorry, what was I saying? Oh, yeah. I would avoid everybody else in that Packers offense. Tucker Kraft is still a stash, and if you believe in the whole backup quarterbacks throw to tight ends, then maybe, you have him as a low-end tight end, but I like a lot of other players better, even at the low-end tight end of things, I guess. Yeah, I guess, what was I going to say? Just that I would avoid and wait on the receivers to see if one of these receivers specifically breaks out with Malik Willis, and if one of these receivers in general sort of seems to break out into a role where they take more ownership over this team or over this offensive attack. Yeah, I guess from my perspective, they're wait and see for sure across the board. Jaden Reed is the most valuable to hold, obviously, but I don't know if he has a ton of value in the immediate term. So yeah, I guess I'm not really interested in starting Packers this week. I don't think that the Malik Willis-led passing attack will have much juice, and I don't think that the run game will be able to dominate the Colts in any way. So I think that it's a situation where, yeah, if you can... Is this... No, that's probably... we should go do something in this game and not just stand around. Yeah, we're going to go check this thing out. Moving on to the Browns and the Jaguars. I would avoid any players on the Cleveland Browns offense this week until further notice, kind of generally. This is just me. It's just my perspective, but I'm out on Amari Cooper. I think that he might have some value, and this is probably a matchup where if he's going to have value, this might be one. I don't know enough about. I know the Jaguars' defense looks decent as a defense, and they're not exactly pushovers this season. So, but I don't like the Browns to do much. You could play Jerome Ford if you. That's a really cool waterfall too. Jerome Ford is probably going to be fine in general in the short term, and is probably on a team that can't seem to really get a passing game built. Probably has the most value out of anyone. Yeah, look at that. It's subtly lit, but you can barely tell that it's lit. What's not lit is the Browns' passing attack with Deshaun Watson. And I think, you don't want Amari Cooper. David Njoku, is he injured at this point, I think? I don't know for sure, but, same advice of don't, in my opinion. And then, hello. And then, you go Jerry Jeudy. If you are really a contrarian who likes to be contrarian, then do that, I guess. Somebody's going to get some action on that team, presumably. This is so cool. I love this area. It's really neat. Looks like little apartment buildings and offices and shops and towers, but made of ice. So moving on to the Jaguars. I think this is a tough matchup for them. I think this is a tough defensive matchup in general, and that the Browns are probably going to show up with the mentality of we got to win this game with defense, basically. So they'll probably put the clamps on and do their best, but I think Jacksonville here could be another one of those teams that wants to prove something this week and comes out firing. It comes out, using their defense certainly to control and help win this game. But that they could be a team that very well comes out firing on offense in a matchup just like the Seahawks against the Patriots, in a matchup that on the surface looks like it might be a bad matchup for their offense. So I just consider that a possibility. If their play calling is good and their talent can prevail, then they could be a good team this week. That said, I don't love and prefer starting all these players, just in general. There's plenty of other players I'd start over these guys. I think your best bet regardless, and this is probably my bias right now just based on my own how I came into the draft and how I'm seeing the season so far, but I think it's Brian Thomas Jr. I think even in a quote unquote bad matchup, he is the guy to do it for this team, to have the greatest chance of just getting it done is what I'm trying to say. So I'm in on Brian Thomas Jr. More so than the others, but I'm not super in on this offense in general. This week, I think in general that this is a mob farm for sure. Okay, I think in general they're good to go. They're not going to be a bad team. Even in a week that it's a tough matchup, I don't think they're going to just get shut out, throw a million turnovers. Trevor Lawrence. I think Trevor Lawrence is just better than that at this point. He's still, certainly I'm not saying he's above turnovers. I'm saying he's above. Oh crap! I got to be careful. Careful. Let's try this. What if I do this? Now you can't reach me. You destroyed. How did I get hit? How did I get hit? What just happened? Bro, what? I thought I climbed up high enough. Shit. What's going on? Okay, I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be good in this game. I think the Browns are good, so it's going to be a matchup. I don't know what else to say. It's going to be a matchup. I'm starting Trevor Lawrence. I'm starting Brian Thomas Jr. I don't know about starting Trevor Lawrence. If I had to, I'm saying I would be okay with it as a semi-contrarian play. Wow, I'm doing really bad here. And I forgot to bring a bed. Wow. So, yeah, Evan Engram I'm scared about, but I think you have to hope that even though he's like the sit of the week or whatever for a lot of people, he's not popular as a start. You got to think that and hope that this is the week that he does get done what needs to get done and has a decent fantasy outing. And if that's the case, then, things are good. Things are good for your fantasy team. things are good in your world as an Evan Engram drafter, because there is still a potential that Evan Engram is a top 5 tight end this year. He just had a really rough week 1. I'd love to see it week 2. I'd love to see this team feel like it has something to prove and just play well as a team and just get it done as a team, basically. And yeah, that's my hope. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm obviously putting a little hopium into my coffee, so to speak. I think Etienne and Bigsby are okay starts for the reason that I don't expect the Browns to really do much scoring, and therefore I expect the Jaguars to be able to control the game manage, or ball control, game management style, win this game, which is why, I don't think actually that Trevor Lawrence is a good start. One of the reasons is that game management paradigm may be what we end up seeing from that team. But Etienne and Bigsby, therefore, would be decent starts, all things considered. Next up is the Jets and the Titans. Apparently the Titans have a strong run defense. But with that said, I fully expect the Jets to be one of those teams this week that comes out with something to prove. Oh, let me get a bed this time. Jeez. Shows up in the game with something to prove and really just brings it to the Titans. So I'm not at all worried about Breece Hall in the run game. I think the Jets will be able to score and possibly get a lead and just control the game with defense and turnovers, but also with just, they're going to try to come out with their offense and really prove something. So I think Breece Hall is a smash. I think Garrett Wilson is a smash. I'm even willing to start Aaron Rodgers, depending on the makeup of my team. I don't think he's a terrible start this week. I think there's a good chance that he has a decent week, throws 3 touchdowns or so. And, so I'm in on the Jets this week for sure. I think Lazard, at least for the short term, is absolutely viable. I think you can pick him up off the waivers or off the free agent, see if he's still out there. If you did, that he's, I think, a viable player, and that, he and Aaron Rodgers' chemistry and connection will be a real thing for a good chunk of this season, at least in the initial phases of the season. So I'm even in there. What a cool... See, this is so cool. This is what a cool little thing. It's a waterfall coming out of the side of a freaking... flowing down here, splitting off into 2 directions. Maybe I'll make the other direction flow, or maybe I'll make this direction flow, because it could flow all the way down here. That would be kind of cool, right? I don't know. I think that would be kind of cool. If it flows right down here. Boop. So, yeah, I would start a lot of the Jets players. Tyler Conklin, people thought might be, and still think maybe might be, a thing at tight end. I'm not sold on it. Haven't seen it yet. Haven't seen it in past years when I heard this hype previously. Not just last year, but even before that, I think there was hype around Tyler Conklin. So I'm out on Tyler Conklin. Jets defense is obviously a great start in this matchup. I think as far as the Titans are concerned, I'm not in love with any of the players in general for the Titans, but Pollard, the thing I'd be worried about with Pollard is just that the role does, it balances back to 50-50 this week, as opposed to Pollard looking like he's in the dominant position. Ooh, that looks like an emerald. So I would be worried about starting Pollard, and I would definitely look at it as a situation where Ridley is probably the best bet insofar as, if they do have to keep up in a high-scoring game, you probably look at Ridley a lot. You probably look at DeAndre Hopkins. The thing about Ridley is he gets Sauce Gardner, so you really don't want that in general, especially if it's a game script. Even if they have to try to pass a lot, if it's a game script where their offense just is not very effective and the game starts to slow down after a 20-point lead is developed or whatever. So I would look at someone other than Tennessee Titan for each of my fantasy football skill positions if I possibly could. Oh, cool. Well, I'm not going to take that right now, though. Look at this waterfall. Terrain is just astounding. This is a completely random seed, And some of the terrain I got here is just really, really cool. And just weird and interesting. Like, that's just interesting and weird and strange. And this is just the most interesting and weird and strange. Did aliens come here before and build this? It's possible. Moving on, the Buccaneers and the Detroit Lions. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, this offense in general, I think, is actually going to be a good one. That's what it looked like after week 1. The defense on the Lions is good, but people are projecting this to probably be a shootout type of game. So I think you can go with the Bucs players here. On offense, obviously, if they can sustain like the high level offensive play in this game against a good team that has pass rushers, then that to me really cements them as a good, valuable fantasy team this season. So, that's one thing to look for. Obviously, I think Mike Evans is a smash start. I think Chris Godwin's a great start too, due to the shootout potential here, and due to the fact that, again, I think there are good pass rushers on the Lions, but I don't think that their secondary is strong, but I don't think that they're like a team you can't pass on. I don't expect that to be the case, but maybe it is. Maybe I'm wrong, and that's, this is where more research helps. Maybe someone else is like, no, actually, the pass defense is the strength of the Detroit Lions. But I'm starting all those guys. Rachaad White as the running back to start. Insofar as this is a game where they probably have to pass a lot, I guess the feeling, the narrative is that potentially Bucky Irving will take over and has taken over already some of the early down, plotting, as they say, kind of with the D or 2 Ds technically, plotting running back work. Not that he's plotting in terms of how he runs. I think he's quite talented, but that the narrative is that his role is likely to be those early downs, whereas Rachaad White is more not just late downs, but also more seen as like the guy that they'll work with in the passing game, that he'll be really valuable in the passing game. So if that holds, then I think this is the kind of game that obviously is a Rachaad White game, right? But I'm excited to see Bucky Irving in his role. I picked him up off the waivers, in one case even as a free agent after the waivers, so in a couple different leagues. So I'm definitely invested there, and I'm really hoping that he does have a role. It sounds like he's a really talented rookie who's just, he's the kind of player who can take over a team, or at least take over a big role in a team, just based on having talent and being in a situation where there is opportunity. So you always want to seek that out in fantasy football, obviously. You want to look for those kinds of opportunities and take advantage of them as best you can. I knew there was more over here. So with that in mind, I'm not interested in starting Jalen McMillan. I'm not interested in starting Bucky Irving. I think you can start Mayfield if you want. I think I don't know. Would I start him over Jared Goff on the other side of this game? I don't know. That's a tough call. I think that, the Buccaneers also have a good defense. My understanding, if I keep thinking which teams are pass funnels, and I feel like I read about it, but now I forgot it all, so I'm probably wrong. But if I'm whatever, maybe I'll look and then put it in the show notes or whatever. Put it in the overlays when I edit this. That the Buccaneers are a pass funnel team, meaning the Lions are more likely to pass rather than run in this game. I like it for the Lions in general, offense. I like it as a get right game from fantasy football perspective, for Amon-Ra St. Brown to have a good fantasy day. And Sam Laporta, I think 2 of the 3 guys, Sam Laporta, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Jameson Williams, at least 2 of those guys are probably going to have good days here, which probably could be said for most weeks for the Lions with a high-powered offense. And then I think, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery are still both really safe plays in this game. Even if the Buccaneers are a pass funnel team, I think Montgomery is the kind of player who will still have value even in off weeks, but maybe if you're, really trying to decide between different running backs and it's close, maybe this is what you imagine or what you think of as an off week for David Montgomery, and therefore, you leave him on your bench perhaps. So it's always a possibility. You have lots of different ways you can approach these games, and one of the things I like to do is just to think about the positive in the negative case and talk it out. And maybe you land on, well, David Montgomery maybe won't be the star in this game because maybe it's a pass funnel team and expected to be not so much a slow running game as much as a high scoring shootout passing game. And then you sit David Montgomery for whoever, for Aaron Jones or J.K. Dobbins or whoever else you have as your kind of choice to make in that situation. So yeah, that's one way to look at it there. I want to eat some rotten flesh that I acquired from killing zombies. As for the rest of the Lions, I think, Jahmyr Gibbs is a start. David Montgomery, I already said all the players, and I think you can start Goff. Maybe he's on the same tier for me as Stafford, if it's true that the Bucs are, in fact, a pass funnel type of team. Raiders and Ravens. Let's start with the Raiders. I think they're going to try hard in this game. I don't know what that means, but I think that they're going to do their best. No, in all seriousness, I think that the Raiders are going to be a team that plays hard this year and that really tries to stay in games. Against this Ravens team, I don't know if I see it actually happening like that. You know what I mean? I don't know if I can actually wrap my head around them being in this game, much less, having a chance to win at the end. But I do think they will play hard as a team. And I do think for that reason, you don't hate having those players on your team. I think Brock Bowers and Devontae Adams are the obvious ones in this game where they're going to get opportunity. They're probably going to try to throw unless the game is just so monumentally slowed down that it basically, prevents much of a passing game from getting going. But I think that, what's up there? I think that's definitely a reasonable play, both of those guys. A reasonable start, that is to say. And I think you could maybe do Jacoby Myers just because, again, I think the situation here is they may need to score and therefore they may try to pass a lot. It's we don't know, but it's definitely a possibility. I don't know why I'm just exploring these dark caverns. It's fun, but not that profitable. You know what I mean? Hi-ya. Oops. Danger. So, I'm not in love with starting anybody on that team, but I think you can start those guys. I don't think you want to start Zamir White. I don't think Alexander Mattison is automatically the passing down / playing catch up back. So I'm not in on Mattison either. I wouldn't mess with him if I didn't have to. I'm just waiting to see a little bit more how that situation shakes out in terms of the split and in terms of the the actual productivity and potential those players have. Moving on to the Ravens. Yeah, I think this is obviously the kind of game script we expect and hope that Derrick Henry gets to run a bunch. If you drafted Derrick Henry, you're hoping that it's a game script dependent thing where in a game where they can take a good lead, where their defense can hold the other team from scoring, that Derrick Henry is going to get a ton of touches and going to end up over 100 yards just from the volume. And, of course, also going to end up with touchdowns. And that's what you're hoping for here. My sense is that it's possible. My sense is that if it does happen, the sensible thing for you to do as the player who has Derrick Henry on your team is to sell high, is to trade Derrick Henry, because I don't see Derrick Henry having week-to-week value in a way that makes you really ever excited to start him. I think he's going to be somebody you're always nervous to start this season. And that's an unfortunate thing, but I think now, seeing him in the game, he doesn't pass the eye test as much as I'd like. I just think you're better off to have somebody else who's a more consistent running back in that position. So I like the idea of, waiting for him to have this big game this week and then doing the move on your roster of trading him, if you can find a willing trade partner. We'll see. Also, the other thing is that the Raiders aren't just a pushover defense. They are a good defense, and they particularly have, Max Crosby and a good pass rush. So you may see a situation where we do get Lamar Jackson improvising and running around trying to create with his feet and stuff in this game. And if that's what we end up seeing, I think that actually bodes well for Zay Flowers. I think that in a way bodes well for the tight ends, because I think the two tight ends and of course Zay Flowers are the players who are involved when Lamar starts to improvise. Other than Lamar himself, of course, getting rushing yards and scrambling and stuff. Those are the players that he ends up, I think, having as outlets, is the two tight ends and Zay Flowers. So this could be a good game for those guys. I'm not at all worried about starting them, even if it is kind of a run first game. There's a small chance that it's so run heavy that those guys don't do anything. But I think there's also a decently good chance that it's not so run heavy, that they don't do anything. But instead, it's just a game where the Ravens put up 4 touchdowns or 5 touchdowns as a team and just really end up kind of dominating the game, and that the whole offense can eat, in other words, is what I'm trying to say. Not so much a Justice Hill game, I would say. Probably Justice Hill is the one player that I wouldn't want to start from that Ravens offense. Moving on, the Rams and the Cardinals. This could be another shootout game that, you can be excited about as a fantasy player. To start the players on these teams. You're hoping that this is a bounce-back game, at least from the perspective of team's vibes, team having something to prove and bringing their A game for Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. I think Kyler Murray, Trey McBride, even Marvin Harrison Jr. and Greg Dortch are the guys to look at as your, best case scenario in a shootout kind of options. Those are the guys that you want to have. And that if it's a shootout, there's the guys that benefit the most. I think that you could probably start any of those guys, and I wouldn't have qualms about it. Same goes for James Conner. The Rams are a decent defense, and there's a chance that the game slows down and the Rams, offensively dominate, and that the Cardinals just still have bad vibes, and that it doesn't quite work out. There's also a chance that this is the week, of course, that the vibes get better for them, and that it does work out. And so, yeah, I think you have to take the chance, obviously, in fantasy football. That's, if you already kind of took the chance with some of your draft picks, and now you just have to put them in your lineup and see if this is the week that it works for them. You know what I mean? I am grabbing shares of Greg Dortch, though, for real, because he could have a breakout game here, or even just, Greg Dortch is the number one, Marvin Harrison Jr. is 1B until further notice, or something. Who knows? I don't know if he's quite on that level of talent, but it does seem like he has a big role. So we'll wait and see. The Rams, I think, are going to be great this week. Obviously, the obvious two of Kyren Williams and Cooper Kupp. But I think that the Demarcus Robinson and Colby Parkinson are good starts this week, and I think Stafford is probably a pretty good start this week. I think I have him over, maybe even. When I thought about it more with Dak, I kind of convinced myself that Dak is a good start. But I was going to say over Dak, over Brock Purdy maybe, although I could convince myself that Purdy's a good start against a Vikings defense that, has never been a shutdown defense in recent years, and I don't expect them to be this year. So maybe it's a situation where you actually, I don't know if you start Stafford over those guys, but the point is, he's on that tier for me. He's right in that range for me of somebody who I'd be interested in starting pretty high up on my starts of the week. Moving to the Bengals against the Chiefs. So my suspicion on the Bengals is that they're going to be a mid-team this year, that they're not going to be an amazing top contender. They're probably going to still have value for fantasy as long as Joe Burrow is out there and is not injured. I think that Jamar Chase is another obvious value, even in a game like this. This game has the shootout potential on the one hand, and the blowout potential on the other hand, which I think is to say that it might be a game where the Chiefs just get out to a big lead. So talking about just the Bengals offense, it has a shootout potential, obviously, and I think that it has, even if it's a blowout, where the Bengals are down, I think either way, the player who I want to sit this game definitely is. What? I'll throw it at a chicken. That's what I'm going to do. I think the player that you want to sit is Zach Moss. I think that Zach Moss is the guy who you want to make sure to avoid, just because he's the early down back. He's the he's the one you would imagine. Oh, these aren't cooked, are they? Oh, these are cooked. Oh, because my sword has fire aspect. Nice. I think that, this is Chase Brown's game, if anybody in that backfield, I don't know. I just think that, and the Chiefs probably can stop the run in this game, even if if the Bengals did try to run. So I'm nervous about Burrow, but I'd start him in that same tier that I mentioned before. Maybe Goff and Mayfield, probably starting Stafford over him personally. But again, shootout is the other potential. But they don't have T. Higgins back yet, presumably. And so maybe it's Mike Gesicki or Yoshivas, Andre Yoshivas. Maybe it's those guys this game. Certainly worth a dart throw. As for the Chiefs, I think they're all good. I mean, I do think that Xavier Worthy is going to be very good for fantasy, but of course he's the one with the boom bust potential. Even if he gets more touches than he got in the first game, like I do expect him to continue to get touches, and they're going to scheme it up because he's just good. He's just a good player, and that it's in their interest to do that. With that said, I boom bust is always a potential there for him, but I think he's going to boom much more than bust, and that he's a ton of value in a game like this. Rashee Rice, maybe this is, I think he has a ton of value in general. I think he's a wide receiver 1 and will get work every single week without fail. But with that said, there might be weeks when they just don't need to do as much in the passing game. And any Chiefs game has the potential to become that if the Chiefs just get out to an early lead and the other team can't put it together on offense. I think this one does have that potential, despite the Bengals having a reputation, for being a stronger, more explosive offensive team, and therefore the potential for more of a shootout being on the surface what people might be expecting from this. Anyway, Travis Kelce is, I think, a decent tight end. This might be a week where they really actively try to get him involved, since he didn't do as much in the last game for them. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's even something the Chiefs care about or Travis Kelce cares about. I think in general, this is a situation where they're just like going to be a good team that can win games without needing. It depends what the Bengals bring. Ultimately, I don't know why I'm over-explaining it. It depends if they bring something that really causes a shootout to happen or not. Is one of the ways to think about it, I think. But I think Pacheco will be fine regardless, obviously. And I think you just go ahead and start him. You start Mahomes, even if Mahomes doesn't have to do a lot and you might have a down game. You just do it because they're a good team, and there is that potential for a shootout, which really makes them have a high ceiling, all of these players. Moving on to the Steelers versus the Broncos. A lot of folks, I think, in this game expect what I would expect, which is defense and run game to dominate for both of these teams. I don't expect it to be a prolific passing offense on either side, but of course, like anything else, there's always the contrarian, or there's always the possibility in NFL games that they go kind of in the opposite way that you expect, and this is no exception. This is definitely a game that could go the opposite way that we expect, and so I wouldn't be at all surprised if that's actually what we see, just because I'm never surprised by the NFL with stuff like that. But more seriously, I would be surprised because I really do believe it'll be a run-first, back-and-forth running game. So therefore, players like Najee Harris are presumably good starts. I still don't love Najee in general. I think that the backfield is widely shared between 3 players, and I think that the Broncos' defense is legitimate enough to really make it so it's not a game where Najee Harris can get huge numbers or anything like that. That being said, I think he's definitely the strong start, and it makes absolute sense to put him out there for your fantasy team. This is a geode. I'm excited about that. I'm just going to chop into it here. I wouldn't start Jalen Warren. I wouldn't start Cordero Patterson. But both those guys, I think, might have some value and could look like players to consider after this week. In other words, they could have bigger games this week than they had last week, such that they're in more consideration for you going forward. I think that's a possibility, not a massive possibility, but a possibility nonetheless. I think George Pickens is the most valuable player in that offense in general, but I think this is a week you absolutely should sit him because Patrick Surtain, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but he's a shutdown corner, one of the best in the league, and yeah, he's gonna, I'm sure, shadow Pickens this week because it just makes sense for him to, and really limit Pickens' opportunity this week, I think. And of course, Justin Fields is, an option if you're liking that kind of risk reward of a running quarterback. I just don't see it. I don't see it happening this week, but it very well may, just because that may be the only way that they keep the offense moving. A lot of times, one of the reasons running quarterbacks are so valuable isn't just the whole, they run and they can salvage broken plays and turn it into positive yards, which is part of it. It's the only way the offense can move the ball positively down the field is sometimes these running quarterbacks, just because that's the way, the defense puts pressure on the quarterback and they can't get anything going there. So the thing that starts to work is just, keeping the defense on its toes and making those kind of plays that the quarterback can make as a running quarterback. So yeah, so there's definitely a potential, I think, for that sort of a thing to see. You can do this trick where you do that, and then wow, how did I manage that? That's impressive. Yeah, I wouldn't start any of the Steelers though if I didn't have to. That's kind of how I feel. The Broncos, I think that the folks in my shallow league and possibly in your shallow league dropping Javonte Williams after 1 week are going to recognize after this game that was a bit of an overreaction, because I think that Javonte Williams, out of any of the Broncos players, might have the biggest week of all, might have the value in this game, basically. It could be one of the other running backs too, Jaleel McLaughlin. Well, not one of the other running backs, because I believe Audric Estime is on the IR, the short-term IR, so he's going to be missing at least the next 4 games, as far as I know. But I think that this is a situation where, yeah, those guys all could have a game, could have some value this game. Oh, that goes really deep, doesn't it? I didn't realize how deep it went right from here. Cool. But yeah, I would avoid those Broncos players. I think people that dropped Cortland Sutton this week, which also happened in shallow leagues, I think are also definitely overreacting. So in my opinion, you should grab Javonte Williams. Probably if he was dropped for waivers, he's actually by Saturday, when I'm finally re-recording this and getting ready to put it out there, he's probably back to being a free agent. You know what I mean? Like if he was on your waivers, he's no longer, have to put in a waiver claim. You can just pick him up for free. So if that happened for Cortland Sutton or Javonte Williams, I believe you should pick them up. I believe they're going to have value this year. And I think that there's a chance that Bo Nix and that offense gets better. Might not be, week 2 here, but it could be down the road. But, that's a possibility after this game too, is that the Broncos actually look decent on offense, and people are saying, wait a second, maybe this team is a team I should look at in fantasy. We're almost done. We're finally at the night games here. So at the Sunday night football game, we have the Chicago Bears and the Houston Texans. This is a hot take, but this is a move that a lot of people, I think, wouldn't necessarily agree with or would look at me sideways for, but I'm starting Caleb Williams. I don't care if people say, you should sit him. That's bad on multiple levels for him or for the Bears in this matchup. It's partly because I don't have a choice, because I built a team. I built a team around Caleb Williams, and now I'm just sticking with it. That's kind of just the situation. But it's also a matter for me of I think this has a shootout potential. I think Caleb Williams is going to put it together sooner rather than later. Ouch, compared to some of the other rookie quarterbacks. So I'm just hopeful that happens. Now, that said, the Bears receivers, after DJ Moore, who's an obvious start in this game, in any game really at this point, but especially with Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze both having injuries. Now, latest I heard, neither of them was ruled out. There's a good chance one or both of them actually could play in this game. In Odunze's case, I saw something about how it's seen as being a pain management kind of an injury at this point. But in any case, just be aware that you may have an issue with less Bears wide receiver talent than in a fully healthy week in a game like this. But with that said, I still think Caleb Williams is going to be okay to start. And but when I say okay to start, I mean I'm super worried that he's crappy to start, but I want to start him anyway. I'm just taking that chance for myself personally. I could go back to Trevor Lawrence or somebody else on the waivers. Trevor Lawrence was on the waivers in that league. I picked him up for last week over Caleb Williams. And now this week, I just think, you know what? Forget it. If I'm going to build a team around Caleb Williams, like the Bears, I just have to roll with it, the good and the bad. So that's just a random team that I don't care a lot about. I built it purposely trying to have fun with it. And I really wanted Caleb Williams because I did believe in him, and I do believe in him. So anyway, we'll see. But that's an offense that I don't expect to necessarily have a huge game. The Texans do have a very good defense, so it's a situation where we might see Caleb Williams have a rough time, and that Bears offense have a rough time. But I'm okay with it. I'm okay with taking the chance on him. And DeAndre Swift, I think, is if this is a situation where the Bears pass a lot, or if DeAndre Swift is the back that catches passes, you could have some value there. This might be the game that Kmet or Gerald Everett, the tight ends, have a big game. But you don't want to. It's hard to predict that kind of stuff. And I think the fact that there are two tight ends there makes it harder for me to believe either one of them, is a good start, a good play in this situation. So, for the Bears, I'm hoping it looks better this week, and I'm starting some players just because that's kind of how I feel about it. I think you just do it. I think you just go with it. You know what I mean? As for the Texans, yeah, I mean they're a good team and they're going to do good. There's not much I need to say here. I think Mixon is going to give you RB1 numbers again, and most weeks, but certainly this is one of them. I think that you're going to get 2 of the 3 pass catchers, like most weeks, having good weeks, possibly great weeks. The Bears are a good defense, so it's not like they're just going to have an easy time getting lots of points. But if they're a good offense, and if the Bears' offense cannot reciprocate with good offensive goodness, it could be a situation where the Texans do have an easy time, relatively speaking, putting up a bunch of points. So just keep all that in mind as you think about it. But I'm looking at Nico Collins has a minor injury. It doesn't sound like there's any risk that he misses the game, but I'm thinking that you're going to probably have the kind of game where maybe it's Tank Dell is the one who doesn't get as much, or maybe it ends up being Diggs, or maybe it ends up being Nico Collins. Literally, I just said all 3 of their names, so thanks, Captain Obvious. I really just don't know. It's one of those situations where I really just have a hard time predicting which Titans receiver is going to get it done any given week. But I think in general, you have a very clear case for this team is just going to get it done every week, and you should just start these guys. Although it's harder for me with Tank Dell to start him every week. It's just feels slightly scary, feels nerve-wracking. So, I'm overall I'm high on all these guys, but we'll have to see which of them, in a matchup. We'll have to see what kind of matchup this is. But I was going to say in a matchup where they're expected to win, be able to, have defense and the run game, lead to the win, or be a primary factor in the win. What do those weeks look like for those wide receivers versus weeks where they have to pass and they have to score to outscore a team because they're playing against a really good opponent? Yeah, I think we're still in the wait and see phase with the Texans' 3 wide receiver offense this year. The revamped, or not revamped, but the enhanced receiver core that they have. Last game of the day, or last game of the week, and last game of this show is the Falcons and the Eagles. Monday Night Football. I think that I don't know. It seems like with the Falcons, we just want to see something better. Please be better is all we're thinking as fans, and certainly as fantasy managers. It's just please be slightly better. Kirk Cousins specifically, that's addressed to you, but to the rest of the offense outside of Bijan Robinson is, and a lot of it's going to come down to play calling. I saw glimpses in the first game that Atlanta was going to have, or could have, some good offensive play calling, some good creative plays that work, that seem to have seem to be effective for that team. And we just have to see that improve. We have to see them make the most out of what they have. And if what they have is Kirk Cousins without mobility, if Kirk Cousins is really, continues to be with a really limited mobility, then that's what we have. But we have to deal with what we have and make the most out of it. I think if we are the Falcons, and if we're the fantasy fans who want the Falcons to succeed, that's of course what we're voting for, what we're rooting for. Bijan Robinson is an obvious smash. I think every matchup he has good matchups, so to speak. I think that this is a situation where you don't really want to go deep in the pass catchers, but I mean, you could do worse than Drake London as a start this week. I think that it's the kind of situation where they're probably going to have to throw it if they want to keep up with the good Falcons offense. And so, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, maybe this is, maybe that's the time. This is the time to give those guys the start for your team, and just, they're the kind of players I want to see if the Falcons offense can get better first. But, if you have to play them now, or if you have other players with bad matchups and you're trying to choose between them, you could do worse because the matchup's good. I think that the Falcons are going to try to pass, even if Cousins is limited. They're not going to like protect him from interceptions unless he really continues to look decision impaired and making bad decisions, in which case they may end up trying to protect him, i.e., going even harder into the run game. But I think they'll work with the short passing game. I think it could benefit London. I think it could work for Pitts. It's just a matter of seeing who's who. I wouldn't go as deep as Darnell Mooney on this team. Ray McLeod also deserves consideration for your teams, for your flexes, for your players who could have a blow-up game. He definitely looked the part in the last game. He got lots of. Oh wait, let me break that first. He got lots of run with the first team offense, and looking like he's an important route runner and involved in the passing game. So yeah, so those guys are worth considering, but I think they're lower, deeper league kind of players anyway. As for the Eagles, man, I think they're going to come out this week looking like a top team, looking like they want to just win this game without too much hullabaloo. I think they're going to try to really dial in some of the offensive miscues from last game and really try to be a dominant offensive team going forward. So yeah, that's something that I would expect them to do well, and I like starting any of those players, particularly Saquon, of course, but I think A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith presumably will eat. I don't know the Falcons pass defense, if they have anything to write home about, but I think those guys are probably good to go. And even Dallas Goedert. I mean, you could start Dallas Goedert over a lot of other tight ends right now. And I think, it makes sense. I think that there's a good case for him being a top 8 tight end this week. And potentially even a top 8 tight end on the season, just based on the fact that they're going to need, they're going to be good, and they're going to need people to catch passes on that team, because they're probably just going to be, well, I don't know. I mean, it's a game script thing too. There's going to be games where they don't need to pass much. But yeah, I think Goddard's he is the third weapon outside of the running backs. So yeah, let's get Goddard a good week 2 here. I'd start him over, or I'd think about starting him over Evan Engram. Kyle Pitts, I don't know. I think I'd still start Kyle Pitts in this game, but I'd have to look at the secondary matchups. Maybe tight ends have a really rough time against the Eagles. But yeah, anyway, you get the idea. Goddard seems very startable to me. And with that, we're at the end. I know this was longer than I expected. I hope you enjoyed this. This show it's tough to do this, on such a regular basis. I'm realizing it's a lot of work, but it's also, it's also stuff gets outdated very quickly. And if I fall behind, or if something goes wrong with the recording process, it's tough to turn it around in a time frame that's useful to you. And so, I know I'm behind on these. It's really just me working it out, figuring out how to make the show and whether it works in general. So I'd love any feedback you can give me, any comments you can give me on how to make it better. I will try to release these episodes in a more timely manner, and I'll try to, lock in some of the other things like getting good titles and intros and stuff. But thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I wish you all the best, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.